to my favorite things. Today's episode, I wanted to touch on the single arm dumbbell overhead press. And this is definitely the bread and butter. It's my only shoulder movement, and it's my favorite shoulder movement the last 3 years. But before I touch on the nuts and bolts of why, I wanted to, just reiterate that I really do appreciate all the constructive and positive feedback, whether it's questions, comments. I really, the goal of this series is to potentially help some of you guys out there. It's not to say that my way or my experiences is right for everybody, because this sport is not black or white. There's a lot of different shades of gray that we all can use to better ourselves. And, I really welcome questions. I really welcome the comments. I just, really hope that it's positive and it's productive. That way, not only can I learn from you guys, but also maybe you guys can learn from each other. So really just the goal is to really just kind of, potentially help you guys and then have you guys to help each other. That would be the perfect environment. That's what I really would hope for anyway. So moving on, let's get into the nuts and bolts of this video. And not to say that the barbell press, overhead barbell press is a bad movement, because I used to love that movement and I was really good at that movement. I was able to, hit a PR of 225 for 1, and I got 200 for 5. So those were my personal bests, and that was, age of 40, 41, somewhere in there. So
Yeah.
At the 2011 Pro International, where I placed second in my pro debut, I felt like I had pretty decent shoulder development, and I really attribute that to, the overhead press with a barbell. And then in 2013, that's when I kind of switched over to the single arm dumbbell, and in 2014 at the Pro International, where I won the overall, I would say that my shoulders were definitely improved. It's hard to tell from the pictures I'm going to show you, but they were a little bit improved. And that's not to say that it was, because of the single arm dumbbell press, because I do feel like if I would have continued using just the barbell, I think I would have just seen, just about as good as results. So I don't think, in my opinion anyways, there's any difference. Like, I don't think one is more superior than the other as far as shoulder development, because it's relatively, the same movement. You're pressing something up and down. I mean, so it's really, you're targeting the muscle about the same with both of those movements. But the reason why I switched over to the single arm dumbbell press is because, I did encounter some injuries with the barbell, and I injured my right shoulder in 2012 doing overhead pressing with the barbell. So that was the main reason why I went to the dumbbell, because I feel the dumbbell gave me more range of motion, a little bit more comfortable, and it kind of allowed that right shoulder to kind of go where it needed to go because of the dumbbell. With the barbell, you're pretty restricted. So that was the main reason why I went over to the single arm dumbbell press. And then in 2015, because of my hard head at that time, the ego was saying, hey, let's get back into barbell and see if we can, get that lift moving again, and see if we can maybe, improve on, the last time I was doing the movement. And but that time, this was at the end of 2015, I injured my wrist, and that was right before Christmas. And I'm still kind of dealing with this wrist. It's still a little bit tender. You might see in some of my previous videos I put out, I'm wearing a wrist wrap, and that's because of that injury I sustained at the end of last year doing the barbell overhead press. So moving forward, I'm just like I'm done with the barbell overhead press. Just gonna stay strictly with the dumbbell because it's done a great job for me since 2013. Um, so I really want to get into, some of the nuts and bolts of why I feel, for me personally, anyways, that the dumbbell press, at the moment is superior and for me, and that is because of, again, the range of motion, the safety, the comfort, and just, I really do ended up loving that movement. On the left, we have the starting position for my barbell pressing, and then on the right, you can see that is my starting position for my single arm dumbbell press. So the barbell press, you can see, if you take a look at my wrist, you can see just how far back my wrists are bent, and you can imagine the intense pressure that's being placed on the wrist. And not to mention, because the bar is, out in front of my head, that starting position, my elbows are forced out in front of me, and that puts quite a bit of stress on my shoulder joint as well. So getting the movement started, it creates, quite a bit of pressure on those shoulders, quite a bit of pressure on those wrists, and I really attribute, that is, one of the main reasons why I had sustained some injuries in those areas. Whereas if you look at the dumbbell on the right, you can see that starting position just looks a lot more comfortable for the shoulder joint, and the wrist doesn't need to be is bent as far back. So that is a much more safe and comfortable starting position for me. And that is, the main one of the main reasons why I really, like the dumbbell as opposed to the barbell. And here's the front view. You can see on the left with the barbell, again, look at the wrist position. So imagine, once that movement is started, just how much force is being put on that wrist. Whereas on the right, you can see where my wrist position is with the dumbbell, and where my elbow is. So it's basically a much better and more comfortable position for me to really perform, the overhead press. So just wanted to kind of show you guys the differences in the starting position with these pictures. So a couple key points that I wanted to touch on is that, getting the dumbbell in position, you definitely want to use leg drive, hip drive to get that dumbbell moving, and then using that offhand to help get the dumbbell in place. Because when you're trying to, in this case, I think it was like 60, 65 pounds, trying to get that dumbbell in position, you want to be able to use that momentum and that offhand to get it in place. And then you want to also use that offhand to support yourself. So that's why you see me holding on to my rack here, is to, stabilize that torso so I have a base to push off of. If I didn't have that support with that offhand, there's no way I'd be able to, basically press that dumbbell. I just wouldn't have the stabilization to do it. So it's important that you hold on to something when you're performing this movement. But in regards to, why this is my only dumbbell movement, for me personally, I feel it gives me a lot of bang for my buck. And you'll see in the next clip, you'll be able to see how the front delt is working quite well, but also the side delt. And I think a lot of people say, Jeff, why don't you do side laterals? You're only doing overhead pressing. Won't your side delts not get too much stimulation or development without doing laterals? And you can see here that, they're being hit pretty significantly. So that is the reason why I kind of don't do, any other movements for my shoulders as far as the side head. It's just, I'm able to, load up, with this movement pretty well as far as, the loads I'm using. And when you're doing side laterals, because of the leverages, it's really hard to, continually try to add weight to that movement. So usually for me, I just, try to load up on this movement. I get plenty of stimulation, and usually when I'm done with this movement, I'm pretty fatigued and my shoulders are pretty toasted, so I know they're getting plenty of work. As far as how I progress with this movement, it's really on the slower side of things. Like generally like try to hit like a 10 rep range, work with that for about 3 or 4 weeks, then maybe increase the load, and then work in the 8 rep range, and then so on. I might increase the load again maybe 4 weeks later and do like 6 reps, and then just start the process over again. I'll go back to 12s and just rinse and repeat. This is one of my last sessions I did. PR, 75 pounds, 3 sets by 10. So hopefully you'll see more development come in the future.